Have you ever wondered why your hardest moments often feel like the end, but somehow they become the beginning of something extraordinary? This is the story of Mary, a woman who thought her brokenness was her end, only to discover it was the very thing God used to transform her life. Mary grew up in a small town where dreams often felt like whispers lost in the wind. Life had not been kind to her. She was the youngest of 5 siblings, always in the shadows, always overlooked. Her parents' strained marriage ended when she was just 10, and with her father gone, her family struggled to make ends meet. By the time she turned 16, Mary had learned one thing: life was a series of battles, and she was losing most of them. At 25, she hit rock bottom. A series of bad decisions left her jobless, estranged from her family, and drowning in debt. She sat on a park bench one cold winter night, clutching a small notebook where she had once written her dreams. Tears blurred the ink on the page. "God," she whispered, "why me? Why have you let me fall so far? Why am I so broken?" It felt like her prayer was met with silence. But in that stillness, something stirred within her heart. "I use the broken." The words didn't come audibly, but they filled her soul. Mary couldn't shake them. They echoed in her mind as she stared at the notebook. The next morning, Mary decided to take a step forward, no matter how small. She walked into a local church she had passed many times but never entered. The pastor spoke about the story of Moses, a man with a stutter whom God used to lead an entire nation. "God doesn't call the perfect," the pastor said. "He calls the willing." Mary couldn't explain it, but for the first time in years, she felt hope. She didn't need to have it all together, she just needed to show up. Mary started volunteering at the church food pantry. She didn't think much of it at first, stacking cans and handing out meals. But as the weeks passed, she found herself drawn to the people who came in. Single mothers, struggling fathers, teens trying to survive on their own. They reminded her of herself, and slowly she began to share her story with them. "I know what it's like to feel invisible," she would say, "but you're not. God sees you." Her words carried weight because they came from her scars. One day, a woman at the pantry told Mary, "You have a gift for speaking. You should share your story more." Mary laughed it off, but the seed was planted. Over time, Mary began speaking at small church events, sharing how God had turned her brokenness into purpose. She was honest about her struggles, her failures, and her doubts. People didn't see her as weak, they saw her as real. And her authenticity gave them hope. Her story spread. She was invited to speak at larger events, where she inspired others to embrace their imperfections and trust that God could use their pain for something greater. Years later, Mary stood on a stage in front of thousands, holding the same notebook she had clung to on that winter night. The once blurred ink was now a testament to her journey. "I thought my brokenness disqualified me," she told the crowd, "but God showed me that brokenness isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. He doesn't call us because we're perfect. He calls us because we're willing. And if He can use me, He can use you too." The room erupted into applause, but Mary's heart remained humble. She knew her success wasn't about her. It was about the God who saw potential in her brokenness. Mary's story is a reminder that your pain has a purpose. The very thing you think disqualifies you might be the thing that equips you to make an impact. God uses the broken because their cracks let His light shine through. Are you holding back because you feel unworthy, weak, or too broken? Don't. Take that first step, no matter how small. Volunteer, speak up, share your story. Trust that God can take your scars and turn them into a testimony that inspires others. Your brokenness doesn't define you. It qualifies you for something greater. Let your story be the light that guides someone else out of the darkness. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. So what's stopping you? Take that step today.